My name is Rebecca. I'm 33 years old, and if you asked anyone in my family, they'd probably tell you that I'm the quiet one, the steady one who doesn't cause drama. At least that's the label I've worn since childhood. Emma was the sparkling star, and I was the background light that never flickered brightly enough to draw attention. Every Sunday, without fail, we gather at my parents' house for dinner. It's a ritual as predictable as the ticking clock above their mantel. The drive over is muscle memory now. Past the little church where I sang in choir as a teenager, down the long road lined with oaks that always looked prettier when Emma pointed them out. By the time I reach the driveway, I've usually rehearsed the usual conversation starters. How's work, Mom? How was golf this week, Dad? Emma, what's new with you? That Sunday was no different. At least it didn't seem so at first. The kitchen smelled like pot roast and rosemary, my mother's specialty. She greeted me with a distracted hug, one hand still clutching a spoon dripping gravy. Dad barely looked up from polishing his reading glasses. Emma sat at the table already, tapping her nails against her phone screen, her face glowing from the light. I slid into my usual seat across from her. My spot never changes. It's almost symbolic now, like even at the table I'm assigned to my quiet corner. Dinner began with the usual rhythm. Dad complained about how his golf buddy cheated by moving his ball a few inches. Mom shook her head, pretending to care, while spooning more potatoes onto Emma's plate without Emma even asking. I chewed my roast, nodded at the right pauses, and tried not to count the minutes until I could go home. And then Emma did something different. She set her phone down. That in itself was unusual enough to make me look up. A smile spread across her face, wide and glittering, like a secret about to burst. Her eyes darted between all of us, like she was savoring the buildup. Guys, she said, her voice pitched high with excitement, I have something to tell you. Mom froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. Dad tilted his head. Even I leaned in slightly, though a small pit of dread stirred in my stomach. Emma thrived on big reveals. She lifted her left hand. The diamond caught the light immediately, scattering tiny sparks across the table. Mom gasped so loudly she nearly knocked over her wine glass. Oh my God, Emma! She shot up from her chair, rushing around to grab Emma's hand, practically shoving it into Dad's face. Dad chuckled, adjusting his glasses. Well, would you look at that? Mark finally got the hint, huh? Emma laughed, a soft, triumphant sound. He proposed last night at the new restaurant downtown, right in the middle of dessert. It was so romantic I could barely breathe. Mom clasped both her hands over her chest like she was about to cry. My baby girl engaged. Oh, this is just perfect. Finally, finally. I felt something twist in me, but I smiled anyway. Congratulations, Em, I said, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. I'm really happy for you. And I meant it, or at least part of me did. Mark was nice enough. Boring, yes, but solid. They'd been together for 2 years, and I'd honestly been expecting this news sooner. Speaking of which, I added lightly, I hope you'll let me be your bridesmaid. For a moment, Emma's face froze. Her fingers stilled on the napkin in her lap. The excitement dimmed in her eyes, replaced by a flicker of discomfort so small I might have missed it if I weren't watching closely. She glanced at Mom, at Dad, then back at me. Oh, she said with a nervous laugh. I haven't really thought about all that yet. We literally just got engaged last night. There's so much other stuff to figure out first. The budget, the venue. Bridesmaids will come later. She fiddled with her napkin like it was suddenly the most fascinating thing in the room. Mom jumped in quickly. Too quickly. She's right, Rebecca. There's no rush for details. Tonight is about celebrating. But in that moment, I felt something I couldn't name. Like an invisible curtain had dropped between us. A silent decision already made. I forced another smile and raised my glass of water. Well, cheers to you both then. To love and all that. We clinked glasses. Mom's eyes shone as if this was the proudest moment of her life. Dad even cracked a rare grin. And Emma, she basked in it, soaking up their warmth like sunlight. I sat there, sipping my water, the cold sliding down my throat. I kept my expression pleasant, my voice even. But inside, I felt the familiar echo. This wasn't about me. It never was. Dinner continued, but I barely tasted the food. Emma talked about how Mark had ordered champagne after the proposal, how the waiters had clapped, how strangers at other tables had congratulated her. Mom kept interjecting with questions. What restaurant exactly? Did he get down on one knee? Had she called Aunt Susan yet? I watched the scene like I was watching a play I'd seen too many times before. Emma in the spotlight, my parents glowing with pride, me smiling dutifully from the sidelines. At one point, Dad leaned back, chuckling. Well, at least one of our daughters is moving forward. That's what matters. The words were tossed out casually, but they lodged in my chest like glass. I don't think he meant for me to hear it as sharply as I did. Maybe he thought it was a joke. But Emma caught my eye in that instant, and for a brief, flickering second, her smile faltered, as if even she realized how cruel it sounded. I didn't respond. I kept my face neutral, like stone. When the evening finally ended, Emma hugged me goodbye with exaggerated warmth. Don't worry, Rebecca. When the time comes, I'll definitely keep you in mind. Her words were soft, but there was an edge, an emptiness in them. Driving home later, the headlights cutting through the darkness, I replayed every detail. Mom's shriek, Dad's chuckle, Emma's hesitation, and that one sentence, at least one of our daughters is moving forward. It shouldn't have mattered. I had my own life, my own accomplishments, things they rarely noticed. But as I parked outside my apartment, a cold certainty settled over me. Something had shifted at that dinner. Something quiet, invisible, but undeniable. And for the first time in years, I felt it in my bones. Whatever came next, I wasn't going to like it. The weeks after Emma's engagement announcement blurred together like pages of a book I wasn't allowed to read. Every Sunday, I came back to my parents' table expecting, hoping, for some mention of dresses, venues, even something as small as cake flavors. But each dinner passed almost identically. Dad grumbling about golf, Mom fussing over Emma's plate, Emma scrolling through her phone with a knowing smile. If weddings came up at all, it was in vague, throwaway lines. Oh, we're still looking at venues. Mark's parents have some ideas. We'll figure it out soon. Each sentence was a door shutting in my face. I waited. I told myself patience was a virtue. Maybe Emma wanted to surprise me with an official invitation later. Maybe my parents were saving a special role for me. I even went as far as buying a new dress in soft lavender, something I thought would photograph well as a bridesmaid gown. The dress hung in my closet, tag still on, waiting for the phone call that never came. And then, one Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. Hi, Grandma, I said, smiling instinctively. She rarely called except on birthdays or holidays. Her timing was odd, but her voice was warm, if a little hesitant. Rebecca, honey, how are you feeling? She asked. I'm fine, I said slowly, balancing the phone against my shoulder as I typed at my desk. Why do you ask? Well, Grandma said, her voice lowering to a hush, your parents told me you've been seriously ill. I wanted to check on you. They said that's why you couldn't make it to the wedding. The words froze me mid-keystroke. My heart seemed to slam into my ribs. What wedding, Grandma? There was silence, long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Finally, she said, Emma's wedding, dear. Of course, it was last weekend. I sat back hard in my chair, the air rushing out of me. Grandma, I wasn't invited to Emma's wedding. My voice shook. I didn't even know it happened. She gasped, the sound trembling with disbelief. But they told me you were too sick to come. Oh my goodness. Rebecca, I don't understand. That doesn't make sense. Neither did I. My hands trembled so badly I had to set the phone down on the desk and put it on speaker. Grandma, I swear to you, I didn't know. No one told me anything. Oh, sweetheart, she whispered, her voice breaking. I wish I could explain it. I thought you were resting, recovering, not excluded. Excluded. The word lodged in my chest like a shard of ice. After we hung up, I didn't move for several minutes. My office felt unreal, like I'd stepped outside of my own life. I stared at the lavender dress hanging in my mind, useless, mocking. Then anger surged. I snatched my phone, opened Instagram, a platform I barely used, and typed in Emma's name. Her profile was the first to appear, glossy and curated like a showroom. And there it was, dozens of photos tagged with her new married name. Emma in a white dress, her smile radiant. Mark in a tuxedo, looking stiff but proud. My father walking her down the aisle, eyes shining. My mother crying, clutching tissues. Rows of guests clapping, laughing, glasses raised. Photo after photo I scrolled, my stomach sinking with each swipe. Neighbors from our childhood street were there. Dad's golf buddies, grinning for group shots. Mom's friends from her book club, co-workers. Even cousins I hadn't seen in years, people who lived 3 states away. Everyone except me. And the worst part? It wasn't a small wedding. It wasn't an intimate elopement where invitations were scarce. It was grand, sprawling, over 100 guests. Tables draped with white linens, a cake tall enough to need scaffolding, sparklers lighting the night sky as Emma and Mark kissed under the glow. I gripped my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Under one photo, Emma had captioned, "Mr. and Mrs. Anderson are ready for their honeymoon. Thank you to everyone who made our special day perfect." Perfect. The word stung. A perfect day, and I hadn't even been deemed worthy of an invitation. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. I shoved my phone into my purse, grabbed my keys, and walked out of the office without a word to anyone. I don't remember much about the drive to my parents' house, only that adrenaline guided me, my hands gripping the wheel like claws. Each mile closer made my vision blur with rage. When I pulled into their driveway, my whole body shook. I didn't even bother knocking. I walked straight in, the smell of pot roast from some earlier meal lingering faintly in the air. "Rebecca?" Mom's voice floated from the kitchen. "What are you doing here? It's not Sunday." She appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. The second she saw my face, the color drained from hers. "You knew," I said flatly. My voice was low, dangerous even to my own ears. "You knew I wasn't at Emma's wedding because I wasn't invited, and you told Grandma I was sick." Mom's lips parted, but no words came out. She looked around, as if searching for backup. "Dad!" I shouted, my voice cracking the air. "Get in here, now!" A moment later, he emerged from the living room, frown etched across his forehead. "What's all the yelling about?" "Tell me why I wasn't invited to Emma's wedding." My words came out sharp, clipped, like bullets. They looked at each other. That silent marital exchange parents use when deciding who will break the news, who will play bad cop, who will lie. I wasn't giving them the chance. "Say it, right now. Why?" Mom dropped the dish towel, her hands shaking. "Rebecca, let us explain." "No, tell me the truth. Don't spin it. Don't protect Emma. Why did you leave me out?" The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Finally, Dad sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Look, Rebecca, you've never liked crowds or big events. We thought you'd be uncomfortable. We figured you'd prefer to sit it out." My laugh was hollow, bitter. "You decided that for me, without even asking?" Mom's eyes brimmed with tears, but not of guilt, of fear. She whispered, "We didn't want you to feel out of place." My skin prickled with rage. Out of place? At my own sister's wedding? "Stop lying," I said. My voice was steadier now, frighteningly calm. "What's the real reason?" They exchanged another glance, and this time Dad's jaw tightened. "Fine," he said. "You want the truth? Emma's got her life together. She's successful. She's marrying a lawyer. She has something to show for herself. If you'd been there, what would you have said? You'd just stand in the corner, single, with nothing to add." The words sliced through me like knives. Behind him, Mom muttered softly, "We didn't want you to feel sorry for yourself." I stared at them, feeling the floor tilt beneath me. All the air seemed to leave the room. And for the first time in my life, I realized I was a ghost in my own family's story. For a long moment, the kitchen felt like a courtroom, and I was on trial. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence, a low, mechanical drone that only made the tension heavier. My mother sat at the table, wringing the dish towel in her hands like she wanted to twist it into something else, something that could save her. My father stood with his arms folded, his posture stiff and final, like a judge who'd already decided the verdict. I stared at them, feeling my pulse in my ears. "You didn't want me there," I said slowly, the words tasting like rust. "Because I'd embarrass you, because Emma shines, and I don't." "Rebecca," Mom began, but I cut her off with a sharp wave of my hand. "Don't. Don't you dare soften it. You lied to Grandma, told her I was sick. You erased me. From my own sister's wedding. Do you have any idea what that feels like?" Her lips trembled. She looked at Dad, hoping he'd step in. He did, but not the way she wanted. "Of course we know how it feels," he said, his voice calm, measured. "It feels kinder than letting you stand there, surrounded by people who'd wonder why you're still single at 33. Kinder than watching you get compared to your sister again and again." I blinked. "Kinder?" My laugh was jagged. "You call this kind?" Mom's eyes darted away, fixing on the tablecloth as if it could swallow her. Dad's gaze didn't waver. "Emma has direction," he went on, like he was listing facts on a ledger. "She's building a family. She's marrying someone respectable. Well, you have your work, I guess. But no partner, no children, no sign of either. People would have asked questions. You hate questions." I clenched my fists so tightly my nails dug into my palms. "So you decided to protect me by humiliating me? By cutting me out entirely?" "It wasn't humiliation," Mom whispered. "It was Convenience, I snapped. For you, not for me. For you. Because God forbid you have a daughter who doesn't fit the picture you want to show the world. Her tears finally fell. They landed on the dish towel, darkening the fabric. She didn't reach for me. She didn't deny it either. I turned to Dad. When did I become such a disappointment to you? Was it when I stopped talking about my job because Emma always interrupted? Was it when I bought an apartment and you didn't notice because you were too busy planning Emma's housewarming party? When exactly did you decide my life didn't matter? His mouth pressed into a thin line. You've always been difficult to read, Rebecca. Quiet, reserved. You don't share much. It's not easy to celebrate someone who doesn't put themselves forward. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw every photo frame off their walls, shatter every illusion of the happy family they paraded in front of neighbors. But my voice came out low, cold. You never gave me the chance. Every time I tried, you turned away. Or worse, you turned to Emma. The memories poured in, me announcing my promotion only for Emma to cut in with a story about her coworker's drama. Me trying to show Mom pictures of my apartment, only to be brushed aside so she could coo over Emma's latest shopping spree. Me standing at family dinners, waiting for a pause that never came until I gave up altogether. I thought I'd buried the hurt, but now it erupted, raw and alive. Mom reached out suddenly, her fingers trembling as they hovered near mine. Rebecca, honey, you're making this sound worse than it is. We love you. Of course we love you. I pulled my hand back. You don't love me. You tolerate me. You wheel me out when it's convenient and hide me when it's not. Her face crumpled. Dad's expression hardened, as though my rejection of her words confirmed everything he believed about me. Listen, he said firmly. Emma's wedding wasn't about you. It was about her. She deserved the spotlight without any distractions. Distractions, I echoed, the word venomous on my tongue. The silence between us thickened. My mother's tears dripped into her lap. My father's jaw remained locked. And me, I felt something unfamiliar rising in my chest. Not despair, not sadness. Something sharper. Resolve. You want the truth, Rebecca? Dad's voice cut through. The truth is, Emma makes us proud. She's the daughter we can show off. He stopped, but the pause screamed louder than the words. Say it, I hissed. His eyes bored into mine. You're the daughter we worry about, the one who never seems to get it together. That's the truth. The words should have broken me. Once, maybe they would have, but something inside me shifted instead. I straightened, my voice steady as steel. You're wrong. You don't see me because you don't want to. But one day, you'll regret it. Rebecca, Mom pleaded, her hand half reaching again. No, I said. My calmness scared even me. Save it. You made your choice. You wanted a picture-perfect family without cracks. Well, congratulations. You got it. Just don't expect me to stand in the background anymore. I turned toward the door, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floor. My mother's muffled sob followed me. My father's silence was louder still. As I reached for the doorknob, I stopped. I glanced back once, my voice like ice cutting through the room. Don't expect an invitation to my wedding. For a second, the words hung there, heavy and final. And then Dad laughed. Not loudly, not cruelly, just a short, dismissive chuckle that sliced deeper than a scream. Let's be realistic, Rebecca, he said. We're not going to be waiting around for that invitation. You're probably never going to get married. Mom actually smiled through her tears, as if agreeing. My chest burned, but I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. I opened the door, the cool night air rushing in, and walked out without another word. The drive back to my apartment was quiet. Too quiet. My reflection in the rearview mirror looked unfamiliar, my jaw set, my eyes colder. Their words replayed over and over. You're probably never going to get married. But beneath the sting, another thought pulsed. A secret only I knew. They were wrong, so very wrong, because the truth, the one they never cared enough to notice, was that I was already engaged. The night I walked out of my parents' house, their laughter still echoing behind me, I promised myself something. I promised that I would never again let them define me by what they refused to see. They could paint me as the forgotten daughter, the ghost at the dinner table, but the truth was far more complicated, truths they never bothered to uncover. Because my life wasn't empty. It had been quietly, carefully filling itself with pieces they didn't even know existed. A year ago, I'd been promoted to deputy director at my company. It was one of the biggest moments of my career. I remember sitting at my desk after my boss announced it, hands trembling as I held the new title in an email. For days, colleagues congratulated me, emails poured in, and I felt like, for once, I had stepped into the spotlight. When Sunday dinner rolled around, I tried to share the news. "I have something to tell you," I said, almost mimicking the same line Emma had used about her engagement. I'd barely opened my mouth before Emma chimed in about some promotion her boyfriend's coworker had gotten, spinning it into a long story about corporate politics she barely understood. Mom had laughed. Dad had listened to her instead, and my announcement had died before it was born. After that, I stopped trying. 8 months ago, I bought my apartment. It's not just an apartment, it's mine. Hardwood floors, high ceilings, a view of the city skyline that catches the evening light in golden streaks. I had saved for years, sacrificed vacations, and finally signed the papers with shaking hands. I'd thought maybe my parents would notice when I told them, but the moment I brought it up, Emma squealed about how Mark was thinking of buying her a house after the wedding. Once again, their attention snapped to her, leaving me invisible. So I tucked my pride away, told myself it didn't matter if they noticed. I knew what I'd accomplished. And then, of course, there was David. We'd first met in college, back when everything felt like possibility. He was in a parallel program, tall, soft-spoken, the kind of guy who listened more than he spoke. Back then, I thought of him as a friend. I didn't know his family had money. He never flaunted it. After graduation, we drifted apart, life pulling us in different directions. Years later, when I joined my company, I saw him again in the lobby. My heart had stumbled in my chest. He was already in a senior role, and I learned quickly why. His father owned the company. Not just a man with wealth, but a man with power, deeply respected, always in the papers for some new initiative or donation. But David didn't carry himself like an heir. He worked hard, spoke kindly, treated everyone equally. That was what drew me back in. We started as colleagues, then friends, then something more. Quiet dinners, stolen moments after long meetings, laughter that made me feel lighter than I had in years. Slowly, gently, he became my anchor. And 6 months ago, he proposed. It wasn't flashy, no champagne in restaurants or sparklers in the sky. It was just us, in my apartment, the city lights glowing beyond the window. He held out a ring, his hand shaking just slightly, and said, "I don't care if the whole world knows, or if no one does. I just want you." I cried then, but not because I was surprised. Deep down, I'd been waiting for it, needing someone to choose me, with no conditions attached. The irony, of course, was that I'd been wearing the ring for 6 months, and not one member of my family had noticed. Not once had anyone asked why a gold band had suddenly appeared on my left hand. They were too busy looking at Emma. David and I made a mutual decision to keep things private. His family, despite their prominence, valued discretion. They rarely posted photos, avoided gossip, and lived in quiet luxury that didn't demand an audience. That suited me perfectly. After years of being drowned out, I didn't want my love story to become a spectacle. But standing in my kitchen after the confrontation with my parents, I slipped the ring off my finger and held it in my palm. Their words echoed in my head. "You're probably never going to get married." They were wrong. I was already halfway down the aisle. When I told David what had happened, how my family had excluded me, how my father had laughed, his expression darkened in a way I rarely saw. "So they decided you weren't worthy of being there?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I whispered. He leaned forward, his hand wrapping around mine. "Then they don't deserve to be at ours." The certainty in his voice took my breath away. We had already been planning something small, intimate, just 30 guests. David's parents insisted on covering everything, though they did it with grace, not control. His mother handled the floral arrangements with an elegance that made my chest ache. His sister designed invitations by hand. Every detail was cared for, and for once, I felt included in a family's joy. It was surreal, the contrast. At my parents' house, I was the ghost. In David's world, I was the centerpiece. Sometimes guilt pricked at me. Was I wrong to cut my parents out? Was I lowering myself to their cruelty? But then I remembered Emma's wedding photos, the smile on my mother's face as she cried for her youngest daughter, my father's proud posture as he walked Emma down the aisle, and the lie they spun to Grandma, that I was too sick to be there, too frail to matter. That wasn't kindness, that was erasure. So when David asked, "Do you want them on the guest list?" my answer came without hesitation. No. The word felt heavy, final. We finalized the guest list that night. Grandma, of course. My aunt and 2 cousins who had always treated me like more than a shadow. that was it. My family would be represented, but not by the ones who had cut me deepest. As I sealed the envelopes for the invitations, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: power. For once, I wasn't waiting for their approval, their scraps of attention. I was drawing the lines. And yet, late at night, staring at the ceiling while David slept beside me, doubt crept in. My mother's face appeared in my mind, the way her lips trembled as she tried to justify leaving me out. My father's voice replayed, cold and certain. You're probably never going to get married. What would they do when they found out? I didn't have to wait long to find out. 1 month before the wedding, my phone rang. The caller ID made my stomach twist. Mom. I almost didn't answer, but some part of me, maybe habit, maybe curiosity, clicked accept. Rebecca, she screamed, before I could even say hello. How could you? How could you not invite your own parents to your wedding? Her voice was shrill, frantic, dripping with indignation. So, I thought, they finally knew. Rebecca, how could you do this to us? My mother's voice shrieked through the phone, like glass shattering. Your father and I are in complete shock. To find out from your grandmother of all people that you're getting married, that you've invited her but not us? I held the phone away from my ear for a moment, letting her words spill out like boiling water. When I finally pressed it back, I answered with a calmness that felt unnatural. I told you not to expect an invitation. Do you remember? I said it the night you laughed at me. That was different, she cried. We made a mistake with Emma's wedding, yes, but this is unforgivable. We're your parents. Emma is your sister. Her voice cracked on the last word. For a fleeting second, I wondered if it was genuine hurt or just performance. You excluded me first, I said, flat and simple. She sputtered, but before I could hang up, another voice cut in. Rebecca, what the hell? Emma's voice, sharp and accusing. They must have been on speaker together. Emma, I said, keeping my tone even. How dare you not invite me, she snapped. I'm your sister. A normal sister wouldn't do this. The laugh that slipped out of me was humorless. A normal sister wouldn't erase me from her wedding guest list and tell people I was too sick to attend. There was a beat of silence before Emma hissed, You're being dramatic. Click, I ended the call. The quiet that followed was delicious. For weeks, David and I focused on the wedding. Invitations had already been sent to the 30 people who mattered. His family, a few close friends, my grandmother, aunt, and cousins. David's mother transformed the old mansion into something out of a dream. White lanterns hung in the trees, garlands curled around banisters, and waiters in vintage uniforms rehearsed their cues. Unlike Emma's carnival of 150 guests, our wedding was going to be intimate, intentional. Every person there wanted to be there. Every smile would be real. Still, the phone calls didn't stop. My parents rang at all hours, alternating between pleading and demanding. Emma left me voicemails dripping with venom, calling me selfish, petty, jealous. I ignored them all. Then, one night, a text from my cousin lit up my screen. You need to see this. Attached was a screenshot of Emma's Instagram story. They're having some cheap little wedding in someone's backyard. 30 people? Pathetic. I had 150 at mine. Guess that's what happens when you can't afford anything better. I showed the phone to David. His jaw tightened. She has no idea, does she? Let her think it's pathetic, I muttered. I don't care. But a part of me did. Not because I wanted Emma's approval, God no, but because the cruelty was so casual, so effortless. The day of the wedding arrived, and for once in my life, everything felt right. The mansion glowed as twilight set in, the lanterns casting golden halos. The garden smelled of roses and lavender, mingling with the faint sweetness of champagne. My dress, elegant but simple, flowed around me as I walked down the aisle. My grandmother cried openly, dabbing at her eyes. My aunt gave a heartfelt toast later that made me laugh and choke up at the same time. My cousins danced with me under the strings of lights, snapping photos I didn't mind them posting. David's family enveloped me as one of their own. For hours I forgot about Emma. I forgot about Mom and Dad. Until, of course, the photos hit the internet. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with relentless notifications. I glanced at my lock screen. Message previews flashing like warning sirens. From Emma. Why didn't you tell us you married into money? From Mom. You've embarrassed us in front of the entire city. From Dad. Call us back immediately. Dread pooled in my stomach. I opened Instagram. There they were, my cousins' posts. Me in my gown. David, handsome in his suit, holding me close. His parents, their faces recognizable to anyone in our city. David's father, especially, a man who was practically a household name. He ran multiple companies, sat on the university board, shook hands with the mayor. People whispered about his fortune, his influence, the way doors opened when he merely looked at them. And now those whispers were about me. My mother's reaction was volcanic. She took to Facebook like it was a battlefield. Her posts grew longer each day, about how a loving daughter would never exclude her family, about how cruel I was, about how my father's heart had broken because he hadn't walked me down the aisle. She called me ungrateful, selfish, a traitor to my own blood. Friends of theirs commented, offering sympathy. Some even messaged me privately, asking what I had done to deserve such anger. I ignored it at first, but then David came home one evening, his face serious. "My dad wants to handle it," he said. My stomach dropped. "Handle it how?" David hesitated, then sat beside me, taking my hands. "They're posting about you, but also about him, about our family. He won't tolerate that. He's already planning to call your parents tonight." Fear prickled down my spine. David's father wasn't cruel, but he was formidable. His voice carried weight in every room. I couldn't imagine my parents going up against him. That night, I sat in our living room while the call took place in David's father's study. The walls seemed to hum with his authority, even through the closed door. Later, David returned with the summary. His father had told my parents, calmly but firmly, that their behavior was humiliating, not just to me, but to themselves. If they continued, he would go public with the truth, that they had excluded me from Emma's wedding, lied to our relatives, and only started this uproar when they realized who I had married. He even mentioned he had contacts at newspapers, TV stations, and Dad's precious golf club. One word from him, and everyone would know exactly what kind of parents they had been. After that, the Facebook posts vanished. The phone calls stopped. The messages ceased. For the first time in months, maybe years, there was silence. I should have felt relief, and I did, but there was also something else gnawing at me. Because peace enforced by fear is not the same as reconciliation, and I had a terrible feeling my family wasn't finished with me yet. 6 months passed in silence. No calls, no sudden visits, no barbed Facebook posts disguised as family concern. For the first time in years, I had quiet. David and I settled into our new rhythm, shared breakfasts, long evenings planning trips, laughter echoing through a home that finally felt mine. I told myself the storm was over, but with my family, storms never truly end. They only bide their time. The first crack came from HR. "Rebecca," the director said one morning, sliding a folder across the desk, "we received a resume today, and the applicant listed you as a reference." I opened the folder. Emma's name stared back at me in bold type. My stomach dropped. "She wrote," the director continued carefully, "that you could provide a strong recommendation for her work ethic and character." I closed the folder slowly, my fingers tightening around its edges. "Please review her application through the normal process," I said evenly. "I won't be giving a personal recommendation." The director nodded. "Understood." A week later, HR confirmed Emma hadn't made the cut. Her experience paled next to other candidates. I wasn't surprised. Emma had always been better at attention than at effort. 2 days after that, the phone rang. Mom. "Rebecca, how could you?" she snapped, not even bothering with a greeting. "Emma applied for a job at your company, and you sabotaged her chances." "I didn't sabotage anything," I said, voice cool. "I asked HR to treat her like any other applicant. She wasn't qualified." "You should have helped her. She's your sister." I laughed bitterly. "She's the sister who didn't invite me to her wedding, remember? And you're the mother who told me I'd probably never get married." The line went quiet. For a moment, I thought she'd hung up. Then she whispered, "Rebecca, that's all in the past. Emma needs this job." Then she should have earned it somewhere else. Click. I ended the call. 3 days later, Emma showed up at my apartment. She didn't knock politely. She shoved past me as soon as I opened the door, her heels clacking against my hardwood floor. "We need to talk," she snapped. I shut the door slowly, watching her pace the living room. "About what?" "You can't be serious," she said, spinning on me. "You have to help me get that job." "I don't have to do anything for you." "Yes, you do. You're my sister. Family is supposed to help family." I almost laughed. "Family is supposed to help family? Where was that when you were planning your wedding?" Her face flushed red. "That was different." "No," I said firmly. "It wasn't. You erased me. You all did. Now you want me to save you? I'm not your safety net, Emma." She stepped closer, her eyes flashing. "You've always been jealous of me." Admit it. This is just your revenge. I stared at her, my anger cooling into something sharper. I'm not jealous of you, Emma. I don't want your life, but I also don't want you in mine. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Finally, with a growl of frustration, she stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. My neighbor peeked out into the hall, curious, but I only shook my head and closed the door. For the next few months, there was silence again, a heavy, tentative peace. And then life gave me news that changed everything. I was pregnant. When I told David, his eyes filled with tears. He pulled me into his arms, whispering promises I hadn't even realized I needed to hear. His parents were ecstatic, already planning nurseries and dreaming of lullabies. For the first time, I felt a different kind of completeness. I told only one person from my side of the family, Grandma. She had always been my anchor, the only one who seemed to see me fully. She wept with joy, clutching my hands through the phone. But I should have known she would tell my parents. A few weeks later, a package arrived at my door. Inside were tiny, hand-knitted baby booties. Tucked beside them was a photo of my mother sitting in her armchair, yarn in her lap, a faint smile on her face. No note, no apology. Just that silent offering. I stared at it for a long time, my heart caught between rage and longing. That night I showed David. What do you think this means? He studied the photo. It means they want back in. The question is, do you? I don't know, I whispered. Part of me misses having a family. But then I think about everything they did, and I get angry all over again. Whatever you decide, he said, brushing a strand of hair from my face. I'll support you. I tucked the booties into a drawer, out of sight, but never out of mind. Then, one afternoon, scrolling through Facebook, I saw my mother's post. A cheerful announcement plastered across her wall. Both of my daughters are expecting. I can't wait to be a grandmother to two beautiful babies. Two babies. Emma was pregnant too. For the first time in over a year, my mother had written something about me that wasn't dripping with venom. No bitterness, no accusations, just joy. I read it 10 times, trying to decipher her intent. Was this her way of apologizing, or was it just about the babies? Her shiny new role as grandmother, a chance to rewrite history without ever owning her mistakes. I imagined her holding my child, cooing, pretending we'd never fought. I imagined her whispering comparisons between Emma's baby and mine, weaving poison into every holiday, every birthday. I imagined being erased again, only this time through my child. But then I also imagined the photo of her knitting, the quiet focus on her face. Maybe it wasn't manipulation. Maybe, just maybe, it was love, messy, broken, but still there. That was the cruelest part of all. I didn't know. And I still don't. David's family is whole and steady. They welcome me completely, no conditions. But they can't replace the blood ties etched into me since birth. My grandmother urges me to give them another chance. My aunt warns me they don't deserve one. I hold the knitted booties in my hands at night, whispering to the child growing inside me. I won't let history repeat. You will never feel invisible in your own family. You will never wonder if you matter. And yet, I wonder if forgiving them is the only way to truly break the cycle. The truth is, I don't know if people like my parents, like Emma, can change. Maybe they'll always treat me as less. Maybe this is just another game. But what I do know is this. I'm not the same woman I was before Emma's wedding. I'm no longer the forgotten daughter at the table. If they want to be part of my life, and my child's, they'll have to earn it. And for once, I hold the power to decide if they do.